mission control. The small antenna performed better than predicted. In contrast, at 3 points on Earth, huge 85-foot antenna stations were used for all telemetry, voice communications, and TV transmissions up to lunar distances. Passive thermal control of the spacecraft was then initiated and maintained throughout the mission except during periods of navigation sightings, photography, and television transmissions. Thermal control is vital to the success of distant manned space flight and involves rotating the spacecraft slowly so that excessive heat will not build up on the surface facing the sun. A short time later, the crew removed their pressure suits. They wore lightweight flight suits throughout the remainder of the mission. The first mid-course correction maneuver was initiated at 11 hours. A 2.4-second burn of the service propulsion engine increased the spacecraft velocity by 24.5 feet per second. The resulting trajectory was so accurate that the planned second and third maneuvers were not required. Command pilot Borman experienced some nausea at 19 hours. The two other crewmen also reported a feeling of queasiness. Following medication and a sleep period, all three men felt well and rested. They experienced no further physical problems. The first of 6 television transmissions was initiated on the second day of the flight at about 31 hours.
Apollo 8, Houston, we just got it.
You aren't getting it.
He's on candid camera. Very good. Okay, Apollo 8, we have a good picture.
We're rolling her.
Shotgun
We're
launch.
rolling around to a good view of the Earth, and as soon as we get to the good view of the Earth, we'll stop and let you look out the window at the scene we see. Jim Lovell's down in the lower equipment bay preparing lunch, and Bill is holding a camera here for us both.
Throughout the translunar flight, the astronauts conducted star, Earth horizon, and lunar sightings to demonstrate the accuracy of onboard navigation and evaluate the optical subsystem for future deep space manned missions. For the first time, man took photographs of the receding Earth, as well as many of the approach to the moon. During the translunar flight, the Earth's gravitational pull gradually decreased Apollo 8's velocity to 2,170 miles per hour. Then, as lunar gravity overcame the Earth's diminishing pull, spacecraft velocity increased. As Apollo 8 neared the moon, another extensive evaluation of all systems was conducted by the crew and mission control. If no further maneuvers were made, the spacecraft would circle the moon and head back to Earth on a free return trajectory. However, mission control and the astronauts decided to commit for lunar orbit. On Christmas Eve, at 69 hours and 8 minutes, the service module propulsion system was fired to deboost the spacecraft into lunar orbit. The initial elliptical orbit was 69 by 193 miles above the lunar surface. After a complete systems check and confirmation from mission control, a second burn of the service propulsion system engine circularized the orbit to a planned 69 miles above the moon. For the first time, man looked upon the surface of the moon with his unaided eyes and saw greater detail than ever before.
Houston, what does the old moon look like from 60 miles, over?
Okay, Houston, the moon is essentially gray. No color. Looks like plaster of Paris. Or sort of a grayish beach sand. We can see quite a bit of detail. The Sea of Fertility doesn't stand out as well here as it does back on Earth. Not much contrast between that and the surrounding craters. The craters are all rounded off. There's quite a few of them. Some of them are newer. look like, especially the round ones, look like hit by meteorites or projectiles of some sort.
These history-making scenes were transmitted to the world via television from Apollo 8 in orbit of the moon.
Roger. And I can see the rays coming out of Blade Pickering. We're coming up now near our B1 initial site, which I'm going to try and see. Be advised, the round window, the hatch window, is completely iced over. We cannot use it. Bill Meyer is showing the rendezvous window.
Apollo8 Houston, Roger. Got any more information on those rays, over?
During lunar orbit, the astronauts were out of communication contact for about 45 minutes each time they moved behind the moon. On the dark side of the moon, tracking and general photography of the lunar surface was performed. On the light side of the moon, lunar landmark sightings and tracking of potential landing areas for future missions were conducted. A huge crater and other prominent Lorraine features were photographed, including a high mountain in the center of a crater on the back side of the moon. The astronauts also turned their cameras toward a bright object on the horizon, the Earth, shining in space, with much more brightness than the moonshine we've seen so often from our planet. After 10 lunar revolutions, a total of about 20 hours in lunar orbit, the astronauts prepared for trans-Earth injection and returned to their home planet. Reignition of the service propulsion system to escape the pull of lunar gravity was critical. On the backside of the moon, at 89 hours, 19 minutes, on prior direction from Mission Control, the astronauts fired the engine of the service module for 203 seconds. It was Christmas morning on Earth, and the nation waited for recontact with the astronauts.
Apollo8 Houston. Apollo8 Houston.
Houston, Apollo8, over.
Hello, Apollo8. Loud and clear.
Roger. Please be informed there is a Santa Claus.
That's affirmative. You're the best ones to know.
And bird status report. We burned on...
Man had orbited the moon and looked upon its surface. He had tracked and photographed potential landing sites for future manned missions. He had accomplished the age-old dream of traveling to the moon, and now was on his way home to Earth. During the 2-day, 9-hour return trip to Earth, additional navigational sightings were performed, and communication and thermal control tests conducted. Apollo 8's primary guidance and navigation system was operated automatically for controlling the spacecraft's return trajectory. Mission Control updated return course information to the command module computer at least every 10 hours. A planned mid-course correction was initiated at the 15th hour of trans-Earth flight. A velocity correction of only 5 feet per second ensured entry into the Earth's atmosphere within the mathematically computed Earth entry corridor. Again, because of the accuracy of the trajectory, planned second and third corrections were not required.
As I look down on the Earth here so far out in space, I think I must have the feeling that the travelers in the old sailing ships used to have. You've gone on a very long voyage away from home, and now we're headed back. And I have that feeling of being proud of the trip, but still happy to be going back home and back to our home port. This is Frank Borman. We've enjoyed the television shows, and invite you to stay tuned in the future, because there'll be flights in rendezvous in the Earth orbit, and then, of course, there'll be television from the lunar surface itself in the not too far distant future. So until then, I guess this is
On December
Apollo 8
27th,
signing off.
as Apollo 8 approached Earth, the spacecraft was manually maneuvered in preparation for separation from the service module. 15 minutes before atmospheric entry, the command module separated from the service module. The spacecraft was then automatically maneuvered